My neighbor's dog hated me, and I mean hated me. Every time I walked past their house, he'd run to the fence and start barking like I was his mortal enemy. At first, I thought it was just because he didn't know me, so I tried being friendly. I'd crouch down. I'd let him sniff my hand. Once, I even brought him a dog treat. He wouldn't take it. He just stared at me, growled, and backed away. My neighbor, Mrs. Parker, always apologized. He's never like this with anyone else. That honestly made it worse, because every time I came home, he'd start barking. If I got a package delivered, he'd bark. If I washed my car in the driveway, he'd bark. One time, I sneezed outside, and he started barking. Bro! I eventually started joking that the dog knew something about me that I didn't. Then one afternoon, I was carrying groceries into my house when I heard him barking again. I turned around. He wasn't looking at me. He was staring at my garage. I stopped. He barked again. Then he ran to the corner of his yard, looked back at me, and ran toward my garage. I thought he was playing. Then he started scratching at the fence. Something felt wrong. I walked over. He immediately stopped barking. He just stared at me. Then he looked at the garage again, so I opened it. Nothing. My car, some boxes, an old lawnmower. I laughed. Buddy, what exactly do you think is in here? He started barking again. Then I noticed something. One of my garage windows was slightly open. I hadn't left it like that. I walked inside. Nothing seemed missing, but one of the boxes had been moved. I opened it. Old family photographs. Nothing else. I shrugged and closed it. The dog kept staring. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next morning, Mrs. Parker knocked on my door. She looked nervous. Can I ask you something? Sure, she hesitated. Has that dog ever been inside your garage? No. She stared at me. Then she said, that's what I was afraid of. Apparently, before I moved into my house, the previous owner had a little daughter. She had died years earlier. Mrs. Parker told me the dog had been hers. He'd grown up with that little girl, and for months after her death, he'd sit outside my garage every afternoon. I asked why. Mrs. Parker looked at the ground because that's where she used to hide. Apparently, when she was little, she'd play hide and seek with the dog. Her favorite hiding place was inside the garage. Every time someone opened that door, the dog would run over expecting to see her. He'd done it for years. And when I moved in, I became the person opening that door. That's why he barked at me. Not because he hated me. He thought I was keeping her from coming out. I looked across the yard. The dog was sitting there quietly. For the first time, he wasn't barking. I walked toward the fence. He didn't move. I held out my hand. He slowly walked over. Then he rested his head against the fence. I started crying. I had spent months thinking that dog couldn't stand me. He wasn't angry. He was waiting. And somehow, I think he finally understood she wasn't coming back. After that day, he stopped barking at me. A few weeks later, Mrs. Parker handed me an old photograph. It was the little girl sitting in my garage with the dog beside her. On the back, she'd written, "Best hiding place ever." I framed it. It's hanging in my garage now. And every afternoon, that old dog comes over and sits beside it. He doesn't bark anymore. He just looks at the picture for a while, then goes home. Sometimes the people or animals we think are angry with us are actually just missing someone.